There you go. I thought I'd start with the claw today. Yes, hello. It's Dom Lawson here from Metal Hammer magazine with another of those fairly tedious and depressing Iron Sandwich things. I don't know what is it. A vodcast? Does this count as a vodcast? I kind of object fundamentally to the word vodcast. Really. Just no. It's me talking bollocks is what it is into my laptop on my own, in the vain hope that somebody will listen to me. Actually, I don't really care if anyone listens to me or not. Anyway, I want you to read my stuff in the magazine. I can't say I'm bothered whether you watch this or not, but if you are watching it, then thank you. I'm not entirely ungrateful, despite sounding entirely ungrateful. Today I'm going to talk to you about a fantastic new album by a fantastic British death metal band. I'm going to talk to you about something else as well, because I'm going to celebrate British metal today. Having received the rather tragic news that Bullet for My Valentine are in the studio, I thought I'd try and cheer myself up with some information and opinions on British metal that doesn't suck. So there you go. Today, yes, I'm going to talk to you about Dyscarnate, who are Horsham's finest, which is not really much of a recommendation. But anyway, they are from Horsham in Sussex, and just down the road from me. Quite a long road, about 15 miles. But yes, the new album is called And So It Came to Pass. And So It Came to Pass. It's on the Siege of Amida label, and I have to confess straight away that I have a vested interest here. I'm extremely biased. Discarnate are pals of mine, and not in a kind of show busy music press. Sorry, I've got a hair on my keyboard. What's going on there? A hair's fallen from your head, Dom, and landed on the keyboard. That's what's happened. I'm obviously going bald. Yeah, so I'm biased. They're kind of pals of mine, and basically I kind of got to know Dyscarnate because a friend of a friend kind of put us in touch, and they sent me their first EP thing that they'd recorded, which was really, really, really good actually. And I think, although they weren't the finished article at that point, I mean, this is about 4 years ago maybe. They clearly weren't the finished article at that point, but they had something about them that made them stand out from the great number of new death metal bands that were coming out at that time and that are still coming out. They had something that I thought tapped into what I love about death metal, and I think there's a lot of pointless and enervating debate on the internet between metal nerds about what is or isn't proper death metal. It's ridiculous to talk about things being a proper death metal record, but there is certainly various schools of thought as to what constitutes death metal these days, and I think I'm all for kind of including everything. I don't see any reason to discount the overtly technical, well-produced, polished Pro Toolsy stuff. It's death metal. If it basically includes the basic musical tenets of death metal, then it's death metal, whether you like it or not. I mean, as much as I love, the early stuff is very important to me, and bands like Autopsy and Morbid Angel and Obituary, all that stuff is fundamental to my relationship with death metal, which is very, very strong. Probably stronger than any other subgenre, really. And but at the same time, things evolve, and there's nothing wrong with decent production, and there's nothing wrong with stuff that's technical and precise and doesn't have the atmosphere of that old stuff. Given the choice, I would generally go for something like Asphyx or Autopsy or something, rather than some of the new stuff. But then a lot of the new stuff really thrills me as well. And Dyscarnate, what I love about them is that they managed to kind of tap into both those things. I mean, the EP that they gave me was very much it was modern death metal without a doubt. These guys aren't old enough to have been listening to Autopsy at the time, and back in the day, and so there was no hint of kind of mental funeral in what they were doing. There wasn't much suffocation in there or Obituary or anything, and it was definitely you could tell that they were inspired by stuff like, I guess, Dying Fetus and Origin and that kind of the more modern stuff. Maybe a dash of Hate Eternal in there. But realistically, They did, unusually for a band of their age. They also had something a little bit special in the songwriting department, and I think that's where a lot of modern death metal falls down. Is that it's basically 26 riffs glued together into a song, and it's incredibly technically impressive and all the rest of it. But there's no real sense of songwriting in there. I think I'm a big fan of Obscura and things like that, but when bands go kind of too far down that road, Necrophagists spring to mind. As much as I like them, there's not really much in the way of songwriting going on. Really, it's just a lot of ideas bunged together, And being an old fart, I do like a tune, and I do like a song, and I do like a hook. Although, obviously talking out of my arse, because there's a lot of music I listen to that doesn't have any of those things. But it's certainly that is for me a fundamental. One of the reasons I got into death metal was because a lot of that stuff was really catchy. If you listen to the early Morbid Angel stuff, stuff like Entombed and Dismember, the early albums they made and the stuff they continue to make, it's catchy and it's song based because those guys grew up listening to old school heavy metal and punk rock and things where a tune was important. And Dyscarnate, for whatever reason, seem to have tapped into that. Now, their first they signed to Siege of Amida Records, and the first album, Enduring the Massacre, was I thought a stunning record, a really stunning debut, and it was again, the songwriting was strong, but it was very technical and brutal and uncompromising too. And I think I think if you're going to be one of those bands that lasts, like the Suffocations and the Cannibal Corpses and Obituary and bands like that, then I think you really need to be producing songs that stick in the memory, and that's why it's a kind of joyous thing to listen to the new Dyscarnate album, because I think it's an album of brilliant songs. I think first and foremost, and I've seen them talking in interviews in magazines and stuff about about how that's important, and they want people to be able to sing along and to recognise their stuff, and to not just to be another band that fits into the scene and ticks a few boxes, and I think that's a wonderful thing. But anyway, it's what I think is particularly brilliant about it is it combines it's got a brilliant cutting edge production. It's not they're not going for an old school vibe on it. It's not like some kind of Titan Blood type, atmospheric death metal that harks back to 1989. It's definitely a very much a 21st century production, 21st century sound, and it's triggered drums, and it's big fat guitar sound, and it's and it's savage. But what it has that a lot of the modern stuff doesn't have is character and personality and tunes, and I think it's just a brutal record. If you haven't seen the video, I can't remember which track that was the video for. Was it for the Promethean? I can't remember. I don't know why I'm asking you, because you can't answer, can you? But check out the video. That's a great example. It's what they do is they, you've got 3.5, 4 minutes of riffs, but they're structured like proper songs, and they are. They're never afraid to shy away from a hook or a groove, and there's a lot of groove in Dyscarnate stuff, and the new stuff particularly. I mean, during the Massacre there was less of it. This album, it's definitely, they're not trying to be the fastest band on the planet, and they're not trying to confuse everybody with tricky time signatures or incredibly technical stuff, although they are great players, undeniably. But they've written fantastic songs, and they're memorable songs, and songs that you can bellow along to when you've had 8 pints, and I think that's why they will be around in 10 years, hopefully, still doing this, and I think they're a band that has a very promising future. I think there's a whiff of Cannibal Corpse about the new album, I think, in the sense that people often dismiss Cannibal Corpse as just being kind of a meat and potatoes death metal band and all the rest of it, but there's a reason why they're arguably the biggest death metal band on the planet, and that's because they have lots of songs that people can bellow along to and recognise, and sing along with the riffs and stuff that sticks in the memory, and they've all consistently done that, and obviously they've got disgusting song titles as well, which Dyscarnate don't have, to be fair. But yeah, this is just an album of absolute corkers. There's not a weak track on it. The opening track, The Weight of All Things, will take your face off. I guarantee that. It's that's got a little whiff of Hate Eternal about it, the way it boots off. And there's just some of my favourites. It's an album that I've been living with for a while, but it's certain tracks leapt out immediately. In the Face of Armageddon is killer. Cain and Abel is brilliant. The Promethean is fantastic. I love the closing track, Kingdom of the Blind. It's got a kind of epic vibe to it, but it's not the usual kind of cliche. We're going to finish the album with a slow one. It's got something else going on there that's very intriguing. And this is a band that they're a 3-piece. They're really good mates, and you can kind of tell that. they're people that have an intuitive chemistry between them, and that really comes across. There's a lot of death metal bands that kind of piece together from members from other bands, and changing lineups and all the rest of it. And Dyscarnate have been solid, and I think you can tell that listening to this. It's a very focused record. I would say, without a shadow of a doubt, it's one of the best death metal albums to come out of the UK in the last 20 years. I mean, I think it's right up there with the best of the genre. And I hope very much that the international death metal fan base pick up on this record, because it is quite astonishing. It is of a very high quality, and I think we're very, we're quite complacent about stuff in the UK sometimes, and bands get overlooked in favour of American bands because it's more glamorous when an American band comes over here, But I think if you're a fan of, even if you're not a fan of the kind of underground death metal thing, or the real kind of hardcore in-depth death metal scene, and you're into your Black Dahlia Murder, or I'm trying to think you had Whitechapel or anything like that, I think do check out Dyscarnate, because it's catchy shit, frankly, and brutal, and it does tick some boxes, but at the same time it's got a distinctive character of its own, and I recommend it highly to you. I think it's stunning. I'll be very surprised if it's not in my top 20 come the end of the year. I think it's one of those brilliant albums. And if it's a little bit too modern for you, and you're a moaning old elitist fart, then just get the Asphyx album instead, Death Hammer, which is also fucking brilliant. And talking of British bands, I'm going to change tack now. I'm going to take this opportunity to big up a band that I've seen a few times now, and that I missed out on this album last year through my own foolishness and ignorance. I thought, I don't even remember getting a copy of it, but anyway, I certainly knew it existed, and totally failed to do my best to promote the damn thing. If you've seen My Ruin playing live over the last few years, you will almost certainly have seen Sanctorum, and this is their album here. This is their latest album, I believe. I think they've done one before this. This is called Semper Fidelis, and I just, it's one of those things where I would love to spend lots of time kind of bigging up British metal bands, because we have a great scene here, and we have a lot of cool bands that are doing stuff. But I think it's, like I say, that the British stuff does tend to get overlooked a little bit, because a lot of the bands are on small labels, or they're self-financed or whatever, and they're not getting kind of pushed in the way that, because a lot of the big metal labels are either based in Germany or America, and so it's British bands to kind of get skipped sometimes, But Sanctorum, I think, are brilliant, and I think they're again, it's, in a way, it's meat and potatoes metal. I mean, there's a lot of, I guess there's a lot of Pantera and kind of Machine Head, and a dash of Zakk Wylde, and a lot of that kind of grooving, crushing metal, but grooving and partly melodic, I guess, and partly brutal kind of metal in their stuff. But this is actually an incredibly accomplished record, and I think that's something that that gets overlooked, because the chances are, if you've seen them sporting My Ruin, or you've seen them in a kind of pub, or in a really small venue, and bands like that, you tend to think, oh yeah, just watch them and drink your beer, and don't really kind of pay much attention to them, because they're not getting the big tours, and they're not getting to play in Brixton Academy or whatever. But actually, they're an incredibly good live band, and this is a brilliant record. It's actually a pretty well produced record, really, for a kind of essentially independent release. I'd say it's one or two tracks too long, perhaps, but I think bands have a tendency to, we're in the studio, we better record as many songs as we can, because we might not be able to afford it next time, which is fair enough. But yeah, brilliant. A really, really strong album, Semper Fidelis, which came out last year. It's on Auburn Fox Records. And I don't know, there's just something about this band. There's a reason. I think there's a reason why Tarry and Mick from My Ruin take them out on tour whenever they can, because they've got a real I think it's passion, really, that comes across on this. They're a really passionate band, and there's some really strong songs on it. It's the thing is, the thing with a band like Sanctorum is they don't necessarily fit in with the prevailing trends, so you're not going to get, they're not going to get picked up by certain magazines who are more interested in, how bands look, or whether they fit into the kind of designer clothing, metalcore kind of thing. Then that sadly becomes more important than actually, the quality of a band's music. But real metalheads, I think, will appreciate this record, and I think if you get a chance to to see Sanctorum live, or you see this album, or you fancy downloading it from iTunes or whatever, I assume you can do that, then I recommend it. I think they're really good. We're well worth supporting, I think, apart from anything else. Yeah, there's some monstrous riffs on this, actually. You know, it really impressed me anyway. So I'm bigging up Sanctorum. There you go. Check out Sanctorum, Semper Fidelis, another great British metal album. And there's lots of them around. You know, it's a very glib thing to kind of say, oh yeah, support British metal, man. But you know, why not? Why not? We invented the fucking thing. Let's face it. There you go. It's yeah, Dyscarnate, Sanctorum, both great. Dyscarnate, absolutely. You know, whatever. Make sure you buy a copy of that, even if you don't like metal, even if you're deaf and you don't like music, even if you're dead, buy the new Dyscarnate album. This has been an Iron Sandwich. A little bit incoherent, so no change there then. And oh dear me, how revolting! I'm a bit snotty. Yeah, I'll see you again for another one very soon. Maybe, who knows? And frankly, who gives a shit? There you go. Cheers, folks. Bye.